started?
Yes.
Hello. Why don't we go ahead and get started? It's a little after 2. Well, good afternoon. My name is Scott Heron. I'm a reference librarian in Adult Services. And on behalf of our entire library staff, I want to welcome you and thank you for coming to this program to celebrate our Eugene 150 Poetry Showcase and Open Mic Reading. Before I say anything else, the most important thing I want to say up here is that this program would not have been possible without the hard work put in by Stephen and his better half, Paulette. So I just want to let you know.
There were 4 of us.
Okay. So, Eugene is celebrating its 150th birthday, so most people think, on October 17th. And leading up to that date, we are doing a bunch of programs to celebrate Eugene here at the library. We have Tim McIntosh, who's a playwright and does a lot with Lord Lieber Theater and some other acting groups around town. He wrote a special play that we're going to have for our October 1st Friday. I think that's the 5th, and that'll be in this room at 6 o'clock. And I also put out a flyer of the October programs in back if you're interested. We have some other cool stuff like Susan Prozansky, who wrote Fruit of the 60s, A History of the Oregon Country Fair. She'll be here on October 13th. We're going to have Daniel Knapp of the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art do a program on Carl Morris called A Painted History. This is kind of cool one. Max Grinnell, who's a professor emeritus at Cambridge University, is going to come. He's going to talk about Eugene's urban landscape. He is an urbanologist, and I had no idea what that meant, but when I was surfing around on the web trying to come up with ideas for programs, I ran across him and gave him a call, and he's coming out. We're going to do a program about Wayne Morris, who you know was a senator, and David Turner, who's a local photographer and writer. He's going to discuss his book, Eugene, Images of America, on October 3rd. It goes on, and Bob Welch is coming. We have Windfall, and a bunch of other stuff. So, I won't bore you with it, but if you want to grab one of these, it's also on our website. So, and if you have any questions, you can ask me. I'll be around today. And so, thanks again and welcome. And I'm going to turn the mic over to the man, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Scott. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. This is a wonderful event, and I'm so glad we could be part of Eugene's 150th birthday celebration. So I've got a lot of announcements to get through, so let me get on with it. And forgive me for reading. I've just got a lot to do, so I'm kind of reading today, okay? So welcome everybody to today's exciting poetry showcase and open mic, part of the Eugene at 150 celebration. First of all, we would like to thank the Eugene Public Library for hosting these events, these poetry events, and their adult services librarian, Scott Heron, who you just met, for his unwavering, thanks God for your unwavering support and hard work in making all these poetry events possible. As I said, today's event is part of the Eugene at 150 celebration, Eugene's sesquisentinial birthday. And our part in this celebration actually started with the Oregon Poetic Voices. For those of you who do not know, it is a project out of Lewis and Clark College in Portland. And they've been traveling around recording Oregon poets all over the state for over 20 years. And when they came here to the library last year to record some of Eugene's poets, I was part of it. And Scott Heron asked several of us if we'd be interested in helping the library put on some more poetry events. They wanted to do more poetry stuff. And several of us said yes. And after some initial email communications, Scott asked me to meet with him. We discussed what we could do, and the 2012 poetry events were born. The summer reading series, poetry workshop, and the poetry showcase the following week were very successful and fun events in July. Those of you who were here can attest to that. And this is the 3rd poetry event this year that Scott and I have organized. When Scott first talked to me about doing this event, he was wondering if we could do a poetry event for Eugene's 150th birthday where maybe local poets could read poetry around a Eugene theme. And so I came up with the idea to create a book of Eugene-themed poetry with poets submitting appropriate work and then reading it at the event here today. And the response from the poetry community was wonderful, just amazing. This fine collection of poetry is the result. I asked Pat Edwards of Groundwaters magazine to join me in publishing the book. She's helped a lot of writers here locally get their work in print. All kinds of writers, poetry, fiction, nonfiction. And so we jointly published this book. It was jointly published by Arrowclad Press and Groundwaters Publishing. This poetry collection, Eugene 150th Birthday Celebration Poetry Collection, is a labor of love from Eugene's literary community to the city of Eugene and the Eugene Public Library. And proceeds from the sale of this book will go to benefit the library for its continued support and fine work in our community. The work of 30 Oregon poets and 2 Eugene artists make up this unique anthology. This book was, a little more about Pat. Pat Edwards is the managing editor of Groundwaters magazine. She has brought some of their latest issues here today for those of you who may not be familiar with it. They're on the table back there. And her hard work and editing expertise helped to make this book the special and delightful presentation it is. And I would like to say a heartfelt thanks to you, Pat. And would you come up? Maybe you could say a few words about our project and then help me present these books to the library.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi. I have to bring my cheat sheets because I'm not a public speaker. I want to thank Stephen especially for all of the hard work that he's put into this project. He's really, I've witnessed how hard he has worked, and I'm just glad to see that it's been the success that it's been. And we're honored to have been asked to be part of it. And we're especially excited because of the 30 poets who are reading today, 14 of them are members of our Groundwaters family, so that's pretty special to us. I'd like to thank my 2 editors back here for Groundwaters. Jennifer Chambers was also a member of the panel that helped select the poems, and she's our assistant editor. And Pat Broom is our copy editor, and both of them are extremely valuable to the production of the magazine. We work as a team. Our 4th member happens to be my brother, who some of you may recognize as Jiminy Cricket. His real name is Jim Burnett. He lives in Portland and wasn't able to be here today. But anyway, I really appreciate all the hard work that our staff has done for producing the magazine, and I hope that you'll each help yourselves to free copies of it back there. It is a freely distributed magazine. This is special to us because none of us are actual poets, but we have the opportunity to work with some wonderful writers, and we have a wonderful pool of talent here in Lane County. And so I thank Stephen and all of you for all of your contributions to the book that we put out and to this event.
Did you come back up? So I just want you all to know that we decided, in keeping with the 150th celebration, we decided to do a first print run of 150 books of the book, and we numbered them all. And I believe, are they sold out? I think we're sold out. We have 1 book left.
Oh, wow.
There's 1 book left for sale.
Sold. Sold.
And Pat and I would like to just say again, thank you for all the work that the library does in this community, and on behalf of the literary community and the poetry We want to present you with 10 books.
Right.
And here's 5 of them of the numbered books. We're going to present 5 more to the Friends of the Library bookstore next door for them to sell, where the proceeds will also go to the library.
Great, thank you, Stephen. I'll get these in the question.
Okay. Because the books are sold out, I just want to let you know that the second printing is already on its way. They won't be numbered, but there will be plenty of them. The books are available online at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. You can buy them on my website, which is called wordsongs.com. They will be available at Tsunami Books. Actually, Tsunami will have a few of the first print run. And I'm hoping to get them in Smith Family Books as well. So they'll be around locally, and you can buy them online. As I said earlier, the work of 30 Oregon poets make up this unique anthology. And so we're now going to read poems from the book for you. The poets will read in alphabetical order, the same way they appear in the book. And those poets who cannot be with us today will still be represented by having somebody read their work. We've got some wonderful readers who are going to help us. Each poet sent us a 2-sentence bio to be included in the book. And so I'll use those to introduce the readers. And at the end of the book reading we'll have an open mic. So if you're not signed up, sign up sheets right back there at the table. And so have some refreshments, have some coffee, tea, and we hope you enjoy. But before we formally start, I have just a few more acknowledgments I need to make real quick. We have 2 wonderful local artists who illustrated this book, and they're here today. Ellen Gabehart, who painted the wonderful painting of Eugene that graces the front cover of our book. She was also sketching some of us today here as we read. And I'll read you Ellen's 2-sentence bio from the book. I'll have her stand. Okay, Ellen, would you stand first? I was going to have her stand after the bio, but you guys are better. That's better. Okay, Ellen has been involved with creating art her entire existence, and she says, "For me, where there is life, there is art. Where there is art, there is life." Thanks, Ellen. Diane Burton. Diane, would you please stand? Diane is a personal friend as well as a fine local Eugene artist. Her single-stroke watercolor paintings are wonderful renderings of nature, many of them in beautiful, vivid colors. She graciously allowed us to render her paintings into grayscale graphics, and they're used throughout the book to help with the poems. And I just snuck one of her color ones on the back cover, just so you can see some of the nice colors on her stuff. So, thank you, Diane. Okay, I would like to say a personal thank you to my fellow panel members for this event. Jennifer Chambers, who Pat already mentioned is one of the editors of Crown Waters. Deb Casey, who can't be with us today, and John LaBruce. John, Jen and John, could you guys stand? They helped with the selection process of the poetry for the book, as well as proofreading and suggestions to help to make the book as good as it can be. And they're also helping out today with refreshments and book sales, and definitely with encouragement. So, I'd also like to thank Groundwaters Magazine, the Lane Literary Guild, and the Mid-Valley Willamette Writers for their support of this event and all the events that we've done this summer. And a big thank you to everybody else who's helping out today, and those of you who brought refreshments. And last but not least, I would like to thank my wife, Paulette. She edits my work. She's doing the wonderful coffee and tea here today. We like our own coffee, so we made some for you. Yeah. And she's also helping me with the videotaping. So, and we also brought a cake. It's in the kitchen, and we're going to bring it out at the first break, and we'll cut it then. Okay. I think that's it. So, without any further ado, let's get on to our readings in the book. And first up is Michael Barker. Michael, where are you? There he is. I'm going to read your bio as you come up. Haas Barker is a former logger who, when he could no longer work in the woods, began writing poetry about logging and his experiences working with a bison herd. He later wound up at Paradise Lodge in the wild and scenic area of the Rogue River and spent 6 years there, mainly during the long, wet winters, writing 4 books of prose and poetry.
Thank you. I'm a pretty lucky man. I was born, raised, and lived all my life here in Oregon. And wouldn't care to live anyplace else. Oregon really has it all. The name of my poem is called Oregon, Dear Oregon. Oregon, dear Oregon, you're eternally in my blood. Forever are you in my heart and soul. From your rocky coastal ramparts to your valley's fertile mud, up and o'er the mountains to where your wheat fields roll. I've shaded neath your canopies of virgin old growth stands, roamed your lonely deserts where the ancient coyotes howl. I've combed your windy beaches till my ears were numbed by sand, plied your nameless canyons where the bear and cougars prowl. I've scaled your lofty mountaintops, braved your endless snows, stood in awe and breathless at the splendors of your fall. I've been lashed by the Columbia when the fierce gorge wind blows, and heard the bull elk bugle its timeless mating call. From your pristine lakes plenty, teeming brim with fish, to your boundless wilderness, so rich in fowl and game, I've glutted on your bounty, you've granted every wish. Oregon, dear Oregon, in my soul you've staked your claim. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you, Haas. See Stephen Ballou, that's me. So, where's my poem? Okay, all right, you want to hear my 2-sentence bio?
Yeah.
Okay. After a 27-year career in stage production in Hollywood, California, Stephen now pursues his lifetime calling as a lyrical performance poet in Eugene, Oregon, where he also organized and hosted the 2012 Summer Reading Series poetry events for the Eugene Public Library. He has 4 published books and a blog on his website, wordsongs.com. And my poem is titled Peaceful Greens. And sometimes, when I lay in bed in the late night quiet of Oregon, I can still hear the foghorn of Venice Beach amidst the slow tumble of the early morning marine layer. The sounds of the lumber trains are clear here, long in the still night distance as I reminisce the lumbering waves and walking along the Marina del Rey jetty. My life is different now. Cooler falls and swooping morning birds, rain-filled days that break into clear blue cloud-filled skies. My surroundings are peaceful greens and fall's changing colors, the sounds of tractors, chainsaws, and squawking Canadian geese flocks. No longer the screaming motors of freeways and the constant sirens of Los Angeles, city of my lifetime, long gone city of angels. Oregon is big, like LA, but in a very different way. Gone are the tall buildings, street lights, and 16-lane roads. They have been replaced by quaint farmhouses, bright stars, and gravel driveways. Glorious evening fires replace squabbling neighbors, too close for comfort. Sweatshirts, down vests, and cozy wool blend socks replace t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops. My wife hums and sings now. She loves to ride on a tractor lawnmower. Our neighbors bring us fresh produce, tomatoes and cucumbers, squash and raspberries, lettuce, blueberries, apples, and pears, all grown in their own yards, year-round, with joy. Welcome to Eugene. It is very different here. As I ponder the trees, the wind, the falling leaves, the already greening grass of fall's first rains, the coolness of the air is refreshing. Our wraparound porch is truly a blessing, for I can rock or walk without touching the rain, while viewing it all the splendor of fall and all the coming seasons, in Eugene, in Oregon, in the peaceful greens of my new life. It is very different here. Chris Bluth. Chris Bluth came to Eugene to attend the U of O and never left. His poems have most recently appeared in Denali, Everyday Poets, and Groundwaters.
Fine. Good job. Here, one of the nicest things about alphabetical order is that I get to get done with this sooner, so I appreciate not having to wait for the next person. So thank you for that. I appreciate that a lot. And I actually am working downtown here, and as part of my job, I am across, back and forth multiple times a day, and with this poem comes from that. It's anything you can spare. It's hard to tell anymore who's actually homeless and who isn't, but there he was holding a spray bottle and a stack of paper napkins, saying he either washed my windshield or I might recite one of his poems for any part of $3.31, but I had to catch my bus back home, so I gave him a quarter and some pen and knees, and told him to read something for him free for the next person who came along, and he looked like he had thought that would be a cool idea. Yeah, so if some random guy comes up to you on the street speaking and rhyming couplets, you have me to think, and if he doesn't, I guess the poem you just read will have to do.
Thank you very much, Chris. I really love that poem. I think it's something that most people can relate to, having a similar experience around here in Eugene. Let's see. Next up is Jane Capron. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Jane? Okay. Jane is a writer of mystery novels and belongs to the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, OLLI, poetry group, sponsored by the University of Oregon. A number of her novels, including Hanky Panky and Best Friends, are set in Eugene. Welcome.
I wanted everybody to have a copy of this poem. I think everybody does. You either have your book or I gave you one, because it's hard to read. And it's an ABC poem, which means it has 26 lines, and each line starts with a different letter of the alphabet, or has different letters of the alphabet in it. So it's called an abecedarium for ABCD, you see on Autzen. At Autzen, audacious athletes attack before bellowing, brawling, cheering, caterwauling, ducks drinking in deafening decibels, endangering Eugenians' ears. Frenetic football fans on game day, green, gold, and giddy, high on hash and Heinekens, indecently idolizing Joes and Jacks, kickoff kings. Louder and louder, like a million machine guns, noise destroys the nerves and neurons, overwhelming opponents. Oregon passionately pushes and pulls to quell the enemy quarter by quarter, ratcheting up the raucous rioting so stadium sounds surpass sonic booms on tarmac takeoffs. Tumultuous tributes use up university vitality and voices, weakening, waning, xenophobic, X-rated yowls and yells at sin.
Thank you, Jane, and it's helped me remember my alphabet for when I write. Deb Casey. Deb is one of our panel members who helped with putting this event together and with the poetry selection process for the book. And I'll read, Deb can't be with us today, but she has asked John Whitty to read her poem in her absence. And let me read her bio, and then I'll read John's when he comes up to read his own work. Deb Casey, with friends, has climbed Pisgah most every Tuesday for the last 18 years and is perched on its hillside or riverbank drawing weekly in fair weather. As is Several Sisters was recently published by Finishing Line Press. John?
Thank you all for coming. I never thought I'd have to try to impersonate my wife. Especially reading her poems. She reads her poems wonderfully. I'm so sorry she couldn't be here. But she has a way of complicating language and creating tongue twisters and so on. If she sails right through it, but the rest of us, don't. But I'll do my best with this. Mammal up top Pisgah. Across the frosted field, wolf, moon high, in the branches last night, ages now this early morning, getting better at it, I might agree, with my daughters, being human, vastly overrated. The coyote, first I've seen on our hill, carries a wildcat's ease, pack dog's power, and its stride crossing my path with a grace I seek, practicing to keep knees and hips agile, my own gait easy as an upright, warm-blooded, homo sapien female past, middle age past, childbearing breasts once heavy with milk, childbearing breasts once belly heavy with milk that nourished the children born of my body live, squawky and ruddy, furry early on, now sag, joints creaky, placentas buried in tangles of root balls, trees, grown to bear their own fruit. Sweaty from the climb up, I watch coyote drop down Pisgah, drawn toward its uncompromised presence. I inhale the crispness, hold our gaze, light of hoof, paw, foot, traversing the slope. No sound breaks the chill, contracting limbs and ambition. I descend the scrambling trail with a two-legged hiking friend.
Thank you, John, for that wonderful rendering. Jennifer Chambers. Jen is also one of our panel members who helped to put this event together and with the poetry selection process for the book. Jennifer Chambers is the author of Learning Life Again and Anna, the first book of the Curious Bookshop series. She is an editor, writer, and co-owner of Groundwaters magazine and is a 2012 winner of the Erica Atkinson Memorial Scholarship Award. John?
It was interesting because, as Pat said, a lot of us at the magazine who work at the magazine aren't poets. So it's been wonderful for me to stretch and to really grow as a writer, to try and write poetry. That stuff is hard. I said it in my editorial, actually, for this issue of the magazine. I often have a whole novel in which to make a point, and you poets have like a page. So it's very different. But it was interesting for me to write this particular poem. I used to work at the library as a volunteer when I lived in Eugene, and we would take those peach carts full of paperback books to the downtown mall and give them to the people who live down there. So that's what my poem's about. It's called Deliveries. I spent a few years, I don't know, maybe 2, delivering free books to the kids who lived in the downtown Eugene Mall. It made me feel better. I don't know, maybe because in every face I was looking for my brother. Maybe he lived in the downtown Eugene Mall. Once a week, I'd load up, go out and deliver cheap paperbacks to children too young to look so old, constantly surprised by the taste of those I served. The young girl and the 20-something man with her, I chose not to think about their relationship. Even when the straps of her tank top kept slipping down, she liked potboil romance and young adult fiction, and he sometimes hovered around the edges while she chose, occasionally selecting a science fiction for him, holding it out, wings of hope in her face, unfurling when he took it from her outstretched hand. I gave a lot of books away. It got depressing when they were still there in the rain. And my brother is still there, I think. I wonder if anyone brings him books.
Thank you, Jen. Please welcome Jane Darling. I'm sorry, Lee Darling. Lee, I'm sorry, Lee. Lee Darling has been a resident of Oregon since 1961. She writes essays as well as poetry and published a novel, Just Out of Reach, in 2011. Please welcome Lee Darling.
And I also came to the University of Oregon and didn't leave. That's why 1961. My poem's called The River is Fat Today. The river is fat today, bloated by late melting snows, roiling with runoff from gray, rain-soaked May that devoured spring. Unleashed, it rumbles down the valley's gut, searching, seeking, answering the mating call of surf and sea. Brave and bold, lured by lunar lust, it roars across the bar, captured, cradled, rocked between 2 shores. Then teased aloft again, enticed ashore, whipped to tears and shattered shards of ice, it nestles among cascade crests and waits again the call of spring.
Thank you, Lee. Next up is Gaston. Until recently, a writer of fiction and essays. In his mid-80s, with the encouragement of Dr. Roy Johnston and Groundwaters magazine, Gus embarked into poetry.
I should also offer credit or blame to Osher and Lifetime Learning, because many of the people that are here today are also there, and I appreciate their help as well. This would best be read in spring, I think, in about June or July, the poem that I'm going to try and read for you. Reluctant Coquette. Eugene in April spring, a cruel land of gray skies, daily showers and icy pellets, even snow to hide the drab. Rare glimpses of sunshine tantalizes, with quick promise of warming rays, scurries back to hide behind dark clouds, or the early night of days too short. How like young maiden, a coquette who breathes favors with dimpled smiles, then quick away from eager swain before his fevered hopes unmet. The cold of winter lingers long. No young lad I, tempted by hope's plaintive pleas, I yearn more from her, more sun to warm my garden bed.
With the weather, it's almost like springtime, and that it helped us a lot there. Okay, thank you, Gus. And next up is Joan Dobby. Eugene poet since 1983. Joan Dobby teaches Hatha Yoga, conducts poetry workshops, and loves the yearly Newport Poets Concord, which is where I met her. Most recently, she co-edited the anthology Before There Is Nowhere to Stand, Palestine, Israel, Poets Respond to the Struggle, Last Horse Press, 2012, and co-created the Hatha Yoga textbook, The Many Faces of Hatha Yoga, Kendall Hunt, 2012. Joan?
Hi. Can you hear me? Is this working? So, with all these books I've been making, I only wrote 2 poems this year, and this is one of them. Written at the Concord Poetry Festival, and written for Ralph Salisbury and Ingrid Wand, who were there. Eagles, for Ralph and Ingrid. Ralph, did you know that this year on Skinner's Butte, the bald eagles have nested? 3 handsome chicks, so I hear, easily visible to the naked eye. In fact, from her 6th floor window, my student looked up just as an eagle swept by within feet of the glass. Ralph, last night at the restaurant table, I saw Ingrid, her hand like a wing on your shoulder, how she holds you in her heart. Together you've written and published, inspired and taught. Parents together, grandparents together, our daughters together in school. All my years in Eugene, like high-flying eagles, you too have graced my personal sky. Finally nesting up close, now we're friends. I thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joan. I told Ralph and Ingrid about that. I don't know if they've seen the poem yet, but it's a wonderful poem. Next up is Michelle Graff. Michelle was my right-hand woman, I should say. Serving on the panel for the 2 summer reading series events this past July, and we hope to do as good a job next year. Her bio from the book reads, Michelle is a poet, writer, editor, and creative mentor. Her collaborative book of poetry, Lifelines, is available at Tsunami Books and online. Join her adventure at poeticmuslings.net.
Thank you, Stephen, and I have to say that working on this series in July was a wonderful trip. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought we did an amazing job, and people worked so hard on it, and I'm glad to see them here in the audience too. So thank you for that opportunity, and to Scott here at the library for putting it on and having that great vision. Okay. I grew up as an Army brat. I was a born-again San Franciscan, a gypsy on the road for a decade, traveling all over the US and Canada. And for the past 5 years, I finally feel like I'm at home here in Eugene. It's a wonderful place. So I'm delighted to be part of this. And my poem is about one of Eugene's own characters, Scott Blandfield from Tsunami Books. I hear the giggles, yes. Is there anybody here who has not heard of Scott? Okay. So this is my poem called Tsunami Czar. It's a famous place, Tsunami Books. Ken Kesey read here, shared his lusty spirit with adoring crowds who understood. One slam poet, barely past a quarter-century mark, encouraged this newbie to risk all self-respect at open mic for the first time 3 years ago. Always loved to discover new poets, Jorah LaFleur said to my 60-year-old self that memorable night when I read my limericks aloud. First time I'd ever done any aloud reading of my poems. Well, her performance that night jazzed me so much, I went home and wrote a long one in her style. My poetry group meets at Tsunami. We sit high on that podium, and Scott loves us, but frets that our very presence intimidates others looking for that perfect collectible on the shelf behind us. serious poets who are cowed by our exuberance, ricocheted ideas, snatched inspiration, and atmospheric access from the surging creativity that surrounds us. He is a Eugene fixture, Scott is, loved by the town, doing what he wants, where he wants to be. But light years older than that man who came decades ago in search of something more like the town itself. Thank you. And can I say thank you for this marvelous illustration that went along with my poem? I love it.
Welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. Tony Hanner. Tony cannot be with us today, and Deb Casey was originally going to read her poem for us, but because Deb couldn't be here as well, I've asked Laura LeHue if Laura wouldn't mind reading Tony's poem, so it would come from a woman's voice. And so I don't really have a bio for Laura because I asked her at the last minute, but I do know that Laura is very active in the both Lane Literary Guild and the Oregon Poetry Association, and she's the publisher of Utter Chaos books. And so let me read Tony's two-sentence bio here, and then we'll have Laura come up and read her poem. Tony Hanner's poems appear in Yellow Medicine Review, Margie, Alehouse, Calyx, Gargoyle, Tiger's Eye, and others. She is a member of Lane Literary Guild's Red Sofa Poets and Port Townsend's Madrona Writers, and published 2 books in 2012, The Rattling Braid from Tibak Bach, and a chapbook of surrealist poems, Gertrude from Trap Rock.
And if you haven't read Tony's books, you should definitely pick them up. Eugene with Crows, March 2000. That year, the planets were perfectly positioned to deliver us here, this glacial field, a wilderness of glass. We found lions behind our rented duplex. The English ivy was full of snakes. Our cat hunted with utmost vigilance. Their bitten, headless bodies trailing from both sides of his mouth. Now and then I'd save one, fling it into the grass, watch as it slithered out of sight. I stood mourning at the kitchen window, my diminished life, smoke curling around the curtains. I wanted my mother. The daily round I'd left 3 hours south, the unutterable beauty of the familiar. The crows, black slashes, flaring in the March trees, their sudden clacking ruckus. Each morning more crows came, their wing beats overhead, the clapping of hands. Black outlines, shoulder to shoulder on the telephone wire, hunched against the relentless rain, waiting for me to make my next move.
Nicely done. Thank you, Laura. Okay, I think we'll do a couple more here, maybe 2 more, and then we'll take a break. Let's see. We have, next up is Roy K. Johnston, and Roy cannot be with us today. He had to be in Arizona, so he apologized. And he asked if Scott, our librarian, would not mind reading a poem. So Scott's going to read Roy's poem for him, and I've got a 2-sentence bio for each of these guys. So we'll start with Roy. Poet and musician Roy K. Johnston has been a featured reader at numerous international universities and festivals, and has several published books, including The System is Broken, Seeds of Tolerance, Dissonance and Consonance, and The Wandering Circle. For a more detailed biography, visit his website at roykjohnston.com. And Scott gave me one here for him. Scott Heron is an adult services librarian at the Eugene Public Library, which we all know. When not at work, Scott can be found playing banjo with a local bluegrass group and hiking with his yellow Labrador retriever, Molly.
What else could you ask for? Thank you. So I don't know if a lot of you folks probably know Roy, and I probably should have worn a bow tie. Roy is an incredible musician, and as Steve said, he's in Arizona right now, probably lecturing or something like that. So I'm going to read his poem. It's called This Beauty Spot Called Eugene. Here goes the blinding beauty of new spring. The colors run into each other like the smooth blanket of fog as it rolls across my mouth. I have been told by friends that this fog can change into another role, that of a dark phantom. My dear friend Tony just relayed to me the dark phantom she has with depression, and in France with gods. How do you kick back in Eugene? With such a veil, light helps. So I'll stretch that way. Thank you.
So, thank you, Scott. For those of you who know Roy, he was a jazz musician. That sounds kind of jazzy, that poem, so that's pretty cool. Ruth Carnegie. Ruth cannot be with us today, but she has asked her friend, Susie Lunis, to come and be a proxy reader for her today. So I'll read a little bio for each of them. Ruthie is a poet, writer, and bicycle travel consultant based in Eugene. She has a poem in Fault Lines Poetry Journal and is the author of Moon Living Abroad and Japan. And Susan Lunis, who's going to read for her. Susan is a bookbinder who writes poetry and then designs books to mirror and carry the message of the words.
The house was empty. The house was empty that first night after we crossed the northern tier in a Plymouth Voyager stuffed with a cat, a Christmas tree, an 8- and a 12-year-old, listening to Walkmans with their feet in the air, watching movies on the Sony video player through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota. After we opened our gifts in a motel room in Wyoming and ate cheese crackers and Doritos in a gas station because no restaurant was open on Christmas Day. After we chased the wagon trails through Idaho to Ontario, Oregon, past the Strawberry Mountains, Painted Hills, Ochoco Forest, the Three Sisters, and over Santiam Pass, and landed in Eugene. With no moving truck in sight, we simply spread our bodies in a parallelogram across the orange shag wall-to-wall carpet in the living room and began our new life.
Thank you, Susan, for that wonderful reading. Well, I think that's a good place to stop, so I think we'll take a little break. My wife and I also brought a cake to help celebrate the event. So we're going to bring that out, and we're going to cut it, so if anybody wants a piece of cake, you can have that too. Okay, thank you all.